Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion on Sunday, August the 3rd, 2025. In this tropical weather update, we have a lot to talk about in this video with an area that we are really watching very closely, an area of interest out there in the MDR that has a 40% chance of tropical development. We have another area of interest off the Carolina coast that we'll need to also watch that has a 20% chance of tropical development in the 7-day period. Then, of course, we have 95L, which will likely become Tropical Storm Dexter either later on today or perhaps in the early wee morning hours of Monday or Monday afternoon. So in this tropical weather update, we will be breaking down all those details. Now, if you haven't been here before and you do like these detailed tropical weather outlook and discussions, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that bell notification icon to get daily tropical weather updates and live stream coverage on the tropics. Hit that like button and share this video with their family and friends on social media. So here's a look at the latest GOES 19 True Color Visible Satellite Imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There's a link in the description below this video, and we have a lot of tropical activity out there in the Atlantic compared to with what we saw last year and compared to the typical for this time of the year. There are 3 areas highlighted from the NHC. First of all, the one coming off of Africa has everyone's attention still because we don't know where this is going to actually go. There's still a chance this could actually make a beeline for the Bahamas in the next 10 days, or this could turn out harmlessly out into the middle of the Atlantic as a fish storm. While we're also keeping an eye on an area that was newly highlighted from the NHC, another area of disturbing weather off the Carolina coast. This could become another named storm in the next 7 to 10 days as the background state becomes more favorable, while we're also keeping an eye on Invest 95L. This will likely become our next named storm on our list of names. Tropical Storm Dexter will likely be issued by tonight, or if not, by early tomorrow morning. So now with that being said, let's jump straight into our global computer model forecast, timing out our tropical disturbances. Will these become tropical storms or hurricanes over the next couple of weeks? So with that being said, we're going to first look at our GFS model, the Global Forecasting System, the American model, over the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to be looking at our Canadian model, the ICON model, the European Artificial Intelligence model, and then lastly, our typical deterministic Euro model. All right. So first off, looking at the 850 millibar vorticity plot, red shading indicates a lot of spin in the atmosphere at 5,000 feet above the surface. So putting this into motion over the next couple of days here, the GFS model is not very enthused that this area of disturbed weather is actually going to get a name. I still think it is going to deserve a name, probably briefly, which would be Tropical Storm Dexter on our list of named storms. Would be a fish storm. It would go out to sea and not bug anyone, which is great news to see. And then, of course, our area of disturbed weather off the Carolina coast needs to be watched very closely. The GFS model has been quite consistent at showing a tropical storm, if not a low-grade hurricane, off the mid-Atlantic coast here in the next 5 to 10 days, perhaps. And this would be Erin, E-R-I-N, if I got that correctly. If I misspelled a letter, just let me know in the comment section below. That would be our next named storm. And then, of course, over here, it will be off to the races which of these gets named next. So putting this now further out to day 5, we can see our area of disturbed weather off the Carolina coast. Let's actually move over to there. You can see the vorticity plot here, well indicated in the 5-day forecast by the end of this week on Friday, the 8th of August. This does try to develop into a pretty compact tropical storm here with winds that could be on the order of about 40 to 50 miles per hour. When we actually look at the low-level winds on that disturbance, you can clearly see it has winds of about that 40 to 50 mile an hour range. And then it could briefly become even a stronger tropical storm here in the next 7 to 8 days, roughly, where we could have winds up to about 70 miles an hour, paralleling the northeast coast here, bringing quite a bit of impacts perhaps. Now, there has been a lot of uncertainty on this disturbance along the eastern seaboard. If we go back a couple of model runs, like the 06Z run, it is not very strong at all, right? So if we look at that carefully, it is much weaker on this forecast model, and it doesn't do much. But if we go back and look at the 0Z run from last night, it's a little stronger and a little weaker. So it is going to be very important to see if this actually does earn its name in the coming days. But the 18Z yesterday was just super bullish, which I do not trust at all, because that had a pressure down to 971 millibars. All right, so that's a disturbance we will be watching, and the NHC has that highlighted. It's that yellow area. It doesn't relate to 95L, which is the area highlighted in red from the NHC. All right, so back to our wide view here, looking at that vorticity plot again. That's not the only disturbance that we will have to keep in mind. We're going to also have to watch what goes on out here with our next tropical wave coming off of Africa. There is a lot of model spread and inconsistencies now. Some models show that this is going to strengthen very quickly into a tropical storm as it heads towards the west-northwest and doesn't turn to the north, while like the Euro model and the AI model and the icon show that this disturbance is going to be up in here somewhere. So it would likely make a turn well north of any United States impact or landfall, or perhaps Bermuda. But there's additional tropical waves behind that. And a lot of you are like, good, I'm glad that wave is actually not going to impact us at all. But that's not the only system, the second wave or the next wave off of Africa. There's additional waves after that that could acquire additional tropical development. You can see one right here on the latest GFS model, way out in time. This is beyond the 10-day forecast, so there is a lot of uncertainty to this. But you can see models are going back and forth. That's showing maybe something else could percolate out of this, out of the MDR into the southwestern Atlantic in about 10 days. And do I rarely go far out in time at this point? Fantasy land, and it's all about signals. Okay, and it looks like the GFS still indicates we're going to have additional tropical waves to keep in mind all the way into the middle of August. And this is the 19th of August, so about the second to last day before we really get going with the Atlantic hurricane season, which is on about the 20th to 21st, depending on how you look at it. And we have a lot of tropical waves coming off of Africa, a lot of energy to work with here. The MJO is going to be very favorable over Africa, over India, the maritime continent. We'll be looking at that here towards the end of the video, where we are going to need to continue watching this. Even so, that one disturbance could go north. There's more behind it that we will need to focus on too. It's going to be a very busy period. I believe it is going to be a very busy August. So now looking at the Canadian model, what does that model show? Well, look at what we have here, right? So the GFS and now the Canadian model showing that this disturbance is going this way, and it's not going to go to the north as what the other models that I'll show you here indicate. So you can see where that's headed. It's generally headed towards the United States in about 10 days. Well, this is a 10-day forecast, but it's not going to get there in 10 days. I can tell you that right now. It's going to probably be beyond that. But look at all of this energy that is coming off of Africa, all this large vorticity. We have westerly winds right here coming towards Africa, and we have easterly winds just to the north of that. So there is going to be a lot of spin along the intertropical convergence zone, the monsoon trough coming off of Africa, where we are going to need to keep a very close tab on that area for additional development beyond the 10th or the 12th of August. Probably through the most of August, we're going to have to watch that area because climatology really matters. So now looking at the icon model here on the surface wind plot, not the vorticity plot. So there is our system. It could, again, more than likely get named. I think this is going to be Tropical Storm Dexter. I strongly believe that. And then that's going to get more back into an elongated area of low pressure according to the icon. But look what develops here off of the mid-Atlantic once again. an area of disturbed weather with a pressure of 1,009 millibars. And this gets pretty far down there, down to 1,004, 1,003. This would certainly be a tropical storm or a tropical depression impacting the Carolinas, including Virginia, as well as Delaware in about 5 days. So maybe another one of those last minute pop-up storms, and water temperatures in that area are just soaring right now. I'm pretty concerned about that because of how warm the water is. And then beyond that, looking at this disturbance, you can see it turns north pretty quickly along to go with the Euro that I'm about to show you. And then, of course, it doesn't show any more development after that. But, of course, this is the icon model, and it only goes out to about 7 days. Now, of course, our other model that we want to look at here is the artificial intelligence model, the AI version. And the reason why I look at this is because it's a model, and we have to somewhat rely on AI. It's in this day and age of 2025, you hear a lot about AI, so we're going to use that in this video. And you can see the artificial intelligence model with this wave coming off of Africa right now does not look like it's going to develop into anything at all. You can see right there, it doesn't do anything, doesn't go north, it just fizzles out with this high pressure region. But there's another wave behind it that we will need to pay close attention to. Here it all is right here. And guess what? That's not the only one that we'll have to watch closely. There's another wave here. There's another wave here. And it looks like there's another wave back in here. So, I mean, it's the parade, the African wave train that we are going to keep tabs on because, yeah, does this become our next name storm down the line once it gets over here? Does this try to develop and become something? We won't know for sure, but it's signals that I'm looking at. I'm not focusing on one individual system here because this is 360 hours out. This is the 18th of August, but it's the signals that we're looking for. And right now looks pretty active out there coming off of Africa with these very strong tropical waves that could have an opportunity of developing into a tropical depression or tropical storm in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, of course, that's not the end of it. Let's take a look now at our European model from WeatherBell. Okay, from weatherbell.com. Again, I want to be thorough here with all of my models. And you can see here, there is 95L could become Dexter in the next 24 or so hours, briefly a name storm. And then look what happens here. The European model thinks that this is going to develop here. This would be that wave that's coming off of Africa. And nothing's showing up here on the Euro off of the mid-Atlantic. We'll see if the GFS or the Euro is correct at the end of the day on that disturbance. But the Euro not showing much in the way of development. Very quiet model run out here in the next couple of weeks. It's really hard to believe that. It really is because of where our MJO is going to be. And it's worth noting that maybe the Euro has backed off on this model run. Maybe it will trend up onto something in its 0Z model run tonight. But there are some disturbances to watch still. There's this one, and then there's this one in the Western Caribbean. But of course, 360 hours out, that is literally a little past the 2-week mark into the 18th of August. And we all know how things will change with each progressing model run. Remember, yesterday morning, we were thinking that, oh, this disturbance could actually develop with more additional disturbances behind that. Look at now. It's a very different model run in today's version. So maybe tomorrow it will trend back the other way, but we don't know for a fact just yet. Now, because the 12Z model run is not out on Tropical Tidbits, we are going to reference ourselves on the GFS model of our environmental forecast. This is pretty much straightforward, as I've talked about in many of my previous videos. All of this brown here is dry, warm, stable sinking air. No tropical development can thrive in this environment at all. But down here to the south of all that dry air, we have all this moisture coming off of Africa. That's what our tropical waves like most. We have some drier air trying to pour in from the north on this area of disturbed weather, 95L that is. And that's why models are not sure whether or not if it's going to actually be able to become a named storm, but if it does, it would be Dexter. Now, going all the way into the next 5 days, there's our next disturbance. Much more moisture to work with here, not much dry air surrounding the system. So that area of disturbed weather off the Carolina coast is something that we will need to watch very closely. More additional tropical waves coming off of Africa. But look what ends up happening here as we forward this carefully all the way to the end of the model run. Look at how much lesser drier air there is here versus there is here. See that difference? That's what we are looking for a more busier period. We can remove more of this drier air to the north and we get this more moist out here. These tropical waves that develop, they're able to develop a little bit more easily than if there was all of this drier air, if that makes sense. All right. Another factor in all of this is the vertical wind shear. As we talked about in yesterday's live stream, this red ribbon indicates vertical wind shear greater than 40 to 50 knots. So that means background state there in that particular part of the atmosphere is unfavorable. These lighter green, your dark green, lighter blue colors indicate light vertical wind shear, where we are able to get tropical development if the background state cooperates. In this case, it is going to slowly begin to cooperate with us. Now, 4 days out here for Thursday morning on the 7th of August, you can see vertical wind shear overall in the Atlantic is going to be much lighter. Here's one wave with light vertical wind shear, a little bit of a tut-like streamer PVU pause here that's going to help to encroach a little bit of that westerly wind shear, but not going to be strong enough to prevent that from developing any further. Going forward, the vertical wind shear tries to stay light, and it generally does. As you can see here, vertical wind shear in the Caribbean generally under 25 to 20 knots, with more anticyclonic flow coming off of the MDR here, the main development region, where that's what we want to see if we're looking for any tropical formation. And that's what we have. So that's why I am going to be watching the MDR very closely as our vertical wind shear remains quite light. And it's not just a deterministic GFS, it's the GEFS ensemble that indicates that vertical wind shear will stay very light overall over the next couple of weeks here. As you can see, all this blue shading indicates vertical wind shear will be below the long-term average, anywhere between 6 to 12 knots below, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but look at this. Our actual shear contour numbers, 10 knots in a large part of the Atlantic, including for the Caribbean, which means if we get any tropical waves that are very strong, the chances of development is much higher versus if we had above average vertical wind shear in the atmosphere in the deep tropics. And this continues all the way throughout the middle of August. So through the 19th here of August for Tuesday morning, we have, again, below average vertical wind shear values in the MDR, the Caribbean, and the Southwestern Atlantic. And if that's not enough, vertical wind shear off the eastern seaboard is also well below the long-term average, meaning that, yeah, the Atlantic needs to be watched. It really does over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, looking at our latest spaghetti plot ensembles from the GEFS ensemble forecast, there is definitely a risk here that this tropical wave still coming off of Africa has still a chance at developing into a tropical depression or tropical storm here, not far to the northeast of the Bahama Islands in the southwestern Atlantic. We're not saying that this is going to happen. There is a lot of uncertainty here between a track that looks something like this or a track that looks something like that, okay? So there's a lot of uncertainty here, whether or not how close this is going to get towards the mid-Atlantic coast of the United States or the southeastern U.S., like Florida or even the Bahamas, okay? We can only look at one ensemble model at a time and look at trends. And right now, the trends have still been aimed here for the Bahamas, unfortunately, as well as even Bermuda over the course of the 10-day forecast. Now, the European ensemble from the 0Z output, which is from last night, we don't have the 12Z out. That's not going to come out for another Let's actually see. It should have come out just now. And there it is. Here's our 12Z European ensemble forecast that just came in literally about 10 minutes ago upon recording this video. And look at the difference. Look at the spread. This is the European ensemble forecast. And this is the GEFS ensemble forecast, indicating most members over here. So there is still a decent amount of spread and disagreement between these two ensembles, meaning that there is still a 50-50 shot that this goes north, or there's a 50-50 shot that this goes further south and west towards the Bahamas in the course of 10 days. So that's why I will be updating you all here on a daily basis on that evolution. So now looking at the latest NHC outlook here, there are 3 areas highlighted, and it's not just this area of disturbed weather coming off of Africa that we are going to need to pay close attention to. There's another area of disturbed weather that the NHC has newly highlighted here in yellow, as my friend Nate would say, lemon. They have a lemon out off the Carolina coast, and they have cherry red over here off of the North Carolina coast. And this right here would be Dexter. There is a 70% chance that that does get named. There's a 20% chance here off the Georgia coast that gets named, or that develops into a tropical depression or storm. And then there's a 40% in orange. So we have 3 different colors here: orange, cherry, and lemon. The fruits of terribleness, I should say, because boy, if any of these go west, this develops, we're going to have a lot of problems off the mid-Atlantic coast. Now, with that all out of the way, let's take a look now at our current sea surface temperatures, because this is pretty alarming to say the least, and I do not like to fearmonger at all in this part of the video. But where our disturbance actually is, it's down here, that highlighted area that the NHC is watching. That's in an area of 29 to 30 Celsius. So we're looking at mid to upper 80s off the Carolina coast, which is more than favorable to support explosive tropical development if the background state actually cooperates as what some of the GFS model runs are showing. The northeastern Gulf and the Bahamas down here, man, oh man, wait until I show you the high resolution look here in the northeastern Gulf and off the coast of Florida, like Tampa, Sarasota, Cape Coral, showing some very concerning warm waters. Now, looking at the sea surface temperature anomaly map here as a whole, sea surface temperatures are as favorable as you can think, well above the long-term average, anywhere between about 1 to 3 degrees above average, especially in the western Atlantic, the southwestern Atlantic, and the northeastern Gulf. So it's going to be this whole area, I believe, for the majority of our hurricane season, where we are going to need to watch for tropical cyclone genesis as we go into the latter part of August into September, and then eventually lasting probably through all of October. Now, closely zooming in here at the Gulf, wow, water temperatures right now are really, really concerning. I mean, I don't like to fearmonger. You guys can name call me saying I am fearmongering, I'm causing panic. I don't care at all in this video. You need to be afraid of this. This is not good at all. Water temperatures off the coast here of western Florida, like Tampa Bay, Florida, Sarasota, Florida, Key West, Florida. Water temperatures, I just checked before making this video, are in the mid 90s. All right, so all it takes is if we get a system that kind of does this and it kind of parallels the coast of Florida and it tries to take in some of this extra heat out of the waters to get ingested into these tropical systems or hurricanes, big time problems would likely occur. If we get a tropical system that does this and kind of parallels the coast and makes a track like that, it is going to ingest a lot of this warmer water towards the east of it. But look at, as a whole, the entire Gulf here is running about 31 degrees Celsius or about 87 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit, with water temperatures up here in the 90s off the Louisiana coast, Mississippi coast. I'm just telling you, folks, if things end up lining up the wrong way, like we have a lot of moisture, we have very little vertical wind shear, lots of upper ocean heat content is here in the Gulf, man, we could see some big time problems arise. And I don't like to say that. I don't like saying that in these videos, but it's the truth. Science is here to show it to you all that these waters are extremely, extremely warm and ready to go for the peak of hurricane season. And in fact, the whole entire Gulf here is running above average as we speak. So that's just only added octane fuel for hurricanes here or tropical systems. And it's not just that. Look at this. The Western Atlantic, across the Northeast even, look at these waters, anywhere between 1 to 2 to even 3 to 4 degrees above average, especially over Chesapeake Bay, right off the coast of Virginia there. Man, water temperatures about 2 to 3 degrees above the long-term average. And our disturbance that is expected to develop will be somewhere down here. So if you think about it, if this kind of meanders and just kind of does this and goes up the eastern seaboard, we're going to have big problems to contend with if things become very favorable. And you can see that actual sea surface temperatures over here off the mid-Atlantic coast, anywhere between 30 to 31, actually not really 31 Celsius, but down here it's quite warm. But you get the idea. Low to mid 80 water temperatures, more than favorable to support tropical cyclone genesis or even some hurricanes if, again, the background state cooperates. Now, with that being said, if you haven't been here before and you did find today's tropical weather outlook and discussion very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Also, hit the bell notification icon to get all of my daily tropical weather updates, including live streaming coverage when a tropical storm or hurricane makes landfall within 24 to 36 hours. Along to go with hitting the like button and sharing this video with your family and friends on social media. As always, have a great rest of your Sunday here on the 3rd day of August, 2025. I'll be back with you more tomorrow with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion.